And I want to be clear that when I'm talking about growth, I'm not just talking about promotions. And I want to be really clear there because I think, especially when we talk about startups and these small companies, I'll be honest, I am one of the people who very happily benefited from fast growing companies and lots of promotions getting thrown your way. The problem that arises when you move too quickly to promote someone is you may be setting them up for failure because the responsibilities of the role today at a 40-person company are very different from the responsibilities and level of skill and nuance that's needed for that same title at a 100-person company.
Hello, I'm Mary Jantz, and this is List the Damn Salary Range, an interview series where I talk with leaders at companies that list the damn salary range in their job descriptions. There's a lot of work that precedes being able to put a meaningful salary range in a job description, so I'm very excited to be chatting with my friend Melanie today. Among many things, Melanie is the VP of People at Ethena. Ethena is a compliance training platform built for today's teams, and I've long admired their transparency and ability to think outside the box when it comes to pay transparency, career frameworks, performance, etc. These are the things Melanie and I will dive into today. Melanie, hello.
Hello, I'm so excited to be here, and I've even got a little special guest. Hi, everyone.
He's ready for October.
Yes, he is. Halloween cat, loving
it. Cool. Okay. I would love to start by talking about pay transparency and the benefits Ethena has seen since starting this practice. Ethena started including salary range and job descriptions in April of this year. And in a more recent blog post by the team, y'all highlighted 3 major benefits of pay transparency: more competitive recruiting, higher retention, and more equitable pay for everyone. I would love to start by running through your experience with these at Ethena.
Yeah. So I love this question because what's great about it is it really ties in both our mission statement as a company and our product, as well as just how we want to run as an employer. So for anyone who knows, we're a compliance training company and our goal is to create more inclusive and ethical workplaces. And we do that through our product, but it's really nice to also be able to do it through our pay transparency efforts. And so that was really the drive here, as well as I think that people are starting to see that it's also just more competitive to have your salaries written out on the job description. And so when we talk about those 3 areas where it really benefited us, so on the one, let's be real, what we're offering is what we're offering, and that's not really going to change whether we tell you up front or whether we wait till the offer stage to tell you what that number is. And so we have found that not only are we just saving time based on misalignment of compensation expectations. So, for example, a recruiter not having to lose even 30 minutes of a phone screen having to talk to someone who's not interested in our offer. But we have also found that the compatibility of the applicants that are coming in is just increasing because people are bought into our pay transparency efforts. They're bought in on the compensation front, and they're just bought in on the fact that now we can have these open conversations as opposed to this like awkward, can I ask, can't I ask? So on the recruitment front, it's absolutely been a game changer. And we rolled this out in April. It's been like about 6 months now at this point. And there hasn't been a moment where we wondered, oh, should we not have done this? So it's been really great there. On the inclusivity and equity front, what I love about it is, I think there can often be this fear, understandably, right, from HR, like, what if we make a mistake? What if we didn't offer the right amount? And what's really great about being transparent is that there's checks and balances. It is helping hold us accountable. And so the likelihood of us not paying someone within band or not paying someone equitably, it's just so much smaller because everyone's aware. There's no secret. So if we say something and a candidate doesn't feel clear, they can just ask, oh, how did you determine that I fell there on the salary band? Oh, okay. So what are the parameters? Oh, this is the salary band, right? There's no secrets. We're all having an open discussion. And for the record, we welcome that, right? If we make a mistake, we want someone to flag that. We don't want to hide that. We want to catch it before it becomes a problem. So that's been really great. And then I forget, what was the third reason that we said this was so good?
Yeah, more equitable pay for everyone. So you touched on a few pieces of that, but I'd be curious to maybe hear how Athena internally measures pay equity or reviews that system.
Yeah, that's a really fascinating question to me, in particular because I have to admit that we're a pretty small company, right? We're at about
Hmm.
70 people. And so our ability to run really robust reporting around equity
Yeah,
is somewhat minimal. There are
yeah,
only so many people who hold the same title within our
right,
company. Now,
right.
for those people, we are absolutely tracking it. We are absolutely looking to see, are we being consistent in our methodology, in the numbers that we're offering? And the beauty of having salary bands that are public is that there's no getting around it, right? You can't pay
Hmm.
someone below or above salary band. They're in the salary
Hmm.
band. The question is, are we being consistent about around where we place someone in the salary band? What I will say though is, even though we have a smaller pool of people to sort of report on and run these equity checks on, what we do have is really robust processes for checks and
Hmm.
balance to make sure that when we do get to 100 people to 200 people, we have already taken all the steps to mitigate to the extent
Hmm.
possible the possibility for a pay discrepancy. And I'll highlight a few of those just in case helpful to our audience here. But one of them is, how do you determine how much money to offer someone at the offer stage? We have a pretty strict no negotiation policy at Athena.
Yeah.
And I know that scares some people. So let me share our thought process here, which is, we have just seen that negotiation statistically benefits
Hmm.
people inequitably. It
Hmm.
benefits people from privileged communities and less so from marginalized communities. And we feel really strongly that we don't want to pay people based on how good of a negotiator they are or how
Yeah.
much money they were previously making, because those sorts of things just increase the gap even more. The other thing I really like about it is, when you have a no negotiation policy, and I think this is something that people don't often think about, is the stakes feel so high to the hiring manager as well. The
Hmm.
hiring manager is incentivized to offer the most that they think that person is skills and experience
Mm.
is reasonably worth, because there are no takebacks. And no
Yeah.
manager wants to feel like, oh, did I lose them because of 5K? Had I gone just 5K higher, would I have gotten them?
Hmm.
And so the hiring manager really has to do their homework. What is the right number? Because what I offer, there's no going back. And
Hmm.
so we have seen that, where I have seen this in the past, that, when there isn't a no negotiation policy in place, you lowball people because you're expecting
Hmm.
for them to negotiate. And then what happens when they don't negotiate? You actually just
Hmm.
offered them less than they were worth, right? Or there's like now back and forth. And think about how much admin time that throws on the recruiter's, load, right? So it's actually just more efficient, but also the hiring manager really is incentivized to give the highest offer. And in a way, the way I like to think about it is, the hiring manager is negotiating against themselves. They're doing the negotiation work for you so the candidate can feel confident. Every candidate coming to Athena can feel confident that they got the best offer that they were ever going to get. Had we allowed negotiation, that is as high as we would have gone. And I just
Hmm.
love it. I like that we are negotiating on behalf of the candidate.
Yeah, I really like that. There's a few things that are coming to mind for me. One, having worked a number of places that follows this practice of having salary range in the job descriptions, I can relate to the kind of like reduction in cognitive load. The just like, this is clear. I don't have to spend a bunch of time thinking about it. That is really helpful. And then the other piece I really appreciate is exactly what you're saying, taking the burden of negotiation off of the individual. And I like that we're, of course, specifically talking about pay transparency, but Athena in general is very transparent about a lot of your practices. And it's really great to be able to onboard team members before they actually start. And so you're showing them how Athena operates and what it's going to be like to work there. And I love how that translates to the hiring manager, even before the person starts, has their back and is doing their best by them and by trying to get as much as they can for them
Yeah,
for their salary.
that's exactly right. Because if you think about, I think the typical experience, unfortunately, is, asking yourself, oh, should I have negotiated? Or, oh, if I had negotiated with a higher number, would I have gotten it? And what a rough place that is to start, your
Hmm.
new employment experience from a place of lack of trust or not knowing if you've been offered the best offer. We like to get,
Hmm.
and just to your point, from the very first touch point with us, we are being transparent, and that way you can make the right choice for yourself about which company to join and then feel really good about that decision.
I like that. It's a very human approach.
We think so. Humor is human is one of our core values, so that human
Mm,
element is very important to us.
cool. Okay. I would love to transition and talk about career frameworks. So, some of the tools your team uses to figure out what is the salary range. And so, again, I've mentioned Athena writes a lot on your blog. So, if anyone is listening and wants to learn more about Athena, it's a great place to visit. And I read in a blog post that your team recently went through an update to job level definitions to get even more specific. And you all include scope of role, hard skills, soft skills, and leadership skills.
Yes.
And then there's this other piece that I really love that I'm not sure I'd seen before, where you all include a sample problem and a description of how each level would tackle that same problem differently. And I think that's a really tactical and easy to understand as an individual contributor looking at level definitions. So there's not a question behind that, really just like a props. I like that practice. But the other piece that I read in that blog post is this work you all have done ultimately led to an 18-point increase in employee satisfaction around career development, which is huge. That's a really big jump. And there, of course, is a lot of work that goes behind making those sort of jumps in numbers. And I would love to hear a little bit more about why this piece is really important, around why helping team members have a really clear understanding of their career development and growth opportunities is an important practice for companies.
Yeah, I love that question. Actually, I'm going to answer two questions here because I know
Great.
you said there wasn't a question, but I feel like I'm going to answer an unasked question, which is I think one, why is it so important to focus on career growth and provide these opportunities? And also, why is it so important to have clear salary bands and clear job levels and talk about how we make determinations on where someone falls within a salary band?
Yes.
So let's hope I don't forget these things I want to answer. I'll start with the first one, which is career growth. I feel like most people by now have seen that McKinsey study that went viral a couple
Mm.
weeks back, right, on the number one reason or the top reasons that people quit their jobs. And the number one reason was a lack of career growth opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes sense to me, right? We are getting so much of our employees that it is important that they get just as much out of us, the employer,
Mm-hmm.
right? And one of those things is career growth. The other thing that I think about is I remember back when the pandemic started and everyone had like a sense of lethargy and
Mm.
sort of, lack of motivation. And there were all these studies trying to figure out, why is it? What's the cause? And one of the studies that really stuck with me was this one that argued that we as a society are used to having things to look forward to, right? So we
Mm.
used to be
Mm-hmm.
able to look forward to the weekend, to go to the
Mm-hmm.
movies, to have someone over for dinner. And when the pandemic happened, we didn't have any of that, right? We were just
Mm-hmm.
isolated and we were making no plans. We were doing nothing. And so therefore we weren't feeling motivated. There wasn't a sense of excitement. That goes hand in hand with this growth question for me, which is really people want to have excitement. They want to have new
Mm-hmm.
things that they are exploring. And I want to be clear that when I'm talking about growth, I'm not just talking about promotions. And I want to be
Mm-hmm.
really clear there because I think especially when we talk about startups and these small
Mm-hmm.
companies, I'll be honest, I am one of the people who very happily benefited from
Mm-hmm.
fast growing companies and lots of promotions getting thrown your way. Problem that arises when you move too quickly to promote someone is you may be setting them up for failure because
Mm-hmm.
the responsibilities of the role today at a 40-person company are very different from the responsibilities and level of skill and nuance that's needed for that same title at a
Mm-hmm.
100-person company. And so if you were promoted as to a manager level too quickly and you never learned
Mm-hmm.
that skill set, right? And now you're
Mm-hmm.
managing people and you have to train them on a thing that you've never learned, that can lead to issues. So I want to be clear that
Mm-hmm.
I'm not advocating for reckless promotions to keep people at your company. What I'm
Mm.
talking about is making sure that there are growth opportunities. And to be clear,
Mhm.
we're working at a fast scaling company. There are always growth opportunities because you are
Mhm.
always taking on new challenges. But managers would do well to take one step further and
Mhm.
actually make that explicit. How is this a growth opportunity for you? How can you add this to your resume? What is the new skill that you can do today that you couldn't do yesterday? Putting them on cross-functional projects, having them partner with new people. Anyway, I'm going on a tangent because I really care about this topic. But to answer your
Mhm.
direct question, the reason it's so critical is if you don't provide growth opportunities to your team, they will quit. And we have seen this
Mhm.
more than ever since the pandemic hit and the doors opened up for candidates. And I'm very happy for them that they have so much more opportunity now, right? But people
Mhm.
are not stuck to a geographical location. They have the entire country of opportunities to find jobs.
Mhm.
And if you don't provide that growth, they will find it somewhere else. In fact, I think unfortunately it's become so ingrained in the thought process of how we run businesses that people just assume the only way to grow is to go to another company. That's the only way you're gonna get a promotion, or that's how you're gonna grow more quickly. And
Mhm.
I, for one, would really like that to change. I'm a person who likes
Yeah.
to grow with the company. I like to stick
Mhm.
around, and I understand why others wouldn't if you feel trapped, if you feel like there isn't that growth
Mhm.
opportunity. So, yes, growth leads to retention, happy employees, and also just innovation. If you think about burnout, if you think about a lack of motivation, you're just not going to be as creative. You're not going to have the opportunity to take risks and show skills that you otherwise might be able to show. Let me pause because I've talked a lot. Before I talk about the importance of transparency on the pay side, like, is this like what are your thoughts there? Slash, do you
Yeah.
have questions?
I really love the way that you're talking about it, and I think you're highlighting something that can sometimes get lost, is particularly if you're maybe working in people ops or a founder who's doing this work, is I think you're doing a really nice job highlighting that, like, first and foremost, it's about giving people opportunities to grow. And I think it can be really easy to focus on a lot of the stuff we've already talked about, a lot of these kind of like frameworks and job level definitions and career frameworks that all are supporting systems and they're of course important. I think maybe it can feel less overwhelming if you strip it back to exactly what you said. Or let's figure out how to help people at our company grow. And that's a really um, positive and I think maybe exciting lens to think about. We're not just going into these spreadsheets and creating rubrics. We're thinking about the people on our team and how to help them grow. I particularly like how you say grow with the company, and figuring out how to balance. Of course, you're running a business, so figuring out how to balance the company growth side of things alongside the individuals and the people of your team. So,
Oh, nice. It's always great to hear other people's perspectives and take because, I'll be honest, the fun thing about being in HR is that a lot of it is experimentation. A lot of things, have never been done before and we're
mhm.
treading into new waters. And so, yeah, it's great to hear your take on my thoughts here. I'll try and be a little briefer in my second response here on, the importance of talking about, salary bands and job levels. What I think is critical here is that a lot of the fear and skepticism and lack of trust that happens is just because there isn't insight into what's going on in the
Mhm.
background. And so you're not able to build trust and conviction within your employees. And so, more specifically, think about walking into a performance review and
Mhm.
your manager says, here's your increase amount. It's, I don't know, let's say 5K. It's 5K. With no other context, how can you know if that's a
Mhm.
good deal, if that's a bad deal, if that's something to be
Mhm.
proud of? Like, you have no context. And also think about it from the manager's perspective. That manager is not enjoying having to have that conversation with you and not having that context. It's pretty hard for them too. And so
Mhm.
the beauty of having salary bands and job levels is just that, it offers that clarity for everyone, right? If we have clear definitions of that, this is how we determine where on the salary band you land. We can have open discussions around it. Maybe the manager missed something, and that gives the employee an opportunity to advocate for themselves and say, hey, I think you
Mhm.
missed something. Or, yeah, you know what? You're right. I don't have any pushback because that makes sense. You've got the receipts. This is true. This is where
Mhm.
we land. So I have found we do performance reviews every 6 months. We're heading into
Mm.
our next one in a couple of months. And with the last performance review, we really found that as soon as we rolled out the salary bands and the job levels, there just wasn't confusion. It was very clear
Mm.
both sides. And for anyone who's been in the HR world, it's pretty unheard of. You usually
Yeah.
have tons of people reaching out to ask like why, or to push back, or like maybe there's
Mhm.
frustration. And what's interesting with all of this is, I know we were talking at one point around, are people talking more about salary bands?
Mhm.
They're more, are people just having more conversations about here's how much I make, here's how much you make. What's
Mm.
interesting to me is I actually don't think that was ever the goal, either for
Yeah.
us or for employees. I think employees were forced to talk about their salaries
Mm.
because there was not transparency coming from the employer side. And
Mhm.
so they said, if employers aren't going to do it, then I guess we have to do it. But I
Mhm.
don't actually think that at the core, employees are looking to have more conversations around how much does this person make next to me? And I want to make sure, I don't think that's what it is at all. I
Yeah.
think people just want transparency. And
Mhm.
so what's interesting to me is no, we personally, since going public, I'm not hearing people talk about their salaries, but I actually
Mhm.
think that was the goal, which is
Mhm.
people just feel comfort. They are comfortable with the salaries that they are paid. They are comfortable in the knowledge that they understand that they are being paid equitably at the company. There is
Yeah.
no need for all these conversations because it's already been laid out there. And so I actually measure success in the number of, frustrated employees we get or questions we
Mhm.
get. And the reality is we're just not having those conversations at Athena. Like they're just not happening. We're not having
Mhm.
employees reach out to us to say, I'm upset about my salary. And I mean, as an HR person, that's fabulous. It's so
Mm.
great. So, yeah, really important from an engagement perspective, from a retention perspective, from, an employee trust perspective.
Yeah, I really like that. I feel like we're zeroing in on a few sort of like needs that if you can provide and meet for your team around, am I being paid equitably and how do I grow here? And if you can provide those things, it makes a huge world of difference. And as you're saying that, I'm thinking of a question I will sometimes hear from founders who are kind of expressing this experience of I have people joining my team and then 6 months later they're coming to me with questions around like I'm ready, I want a raise, or like I want a promotion. And I always kind of try to direct them back to, I think the actual question is, how do I grow here? What do I need to do to progress to a different level? So I love that it is really easy for people at Athena to understand that.
It really is because if you ask for promotion, the first thing that's going to happen is is the hiring manager or the manager is going to say, "Okay, let's look at the job levels. Where is the
Mm,
gap? Where are you, and what will it take to get there?" Great. When you do that, we can talk about a promotion. So it really is just nice having everything laid out.
cool. I want to kind of wrap up one more question around. We're kind of talking about like performance and promotions. You mentioned Athena runs performance reviews every 6 months. I'm curious, in between those 6 months, what is happening for managers and direct reports? How often are they um, referencing these level definitions? What are kind of like the touch points for making sure they're on the same page at the end of that 6 months?
Yeah, so I will start by talking about our Feedback Fridays because I will never stop being obsessed with them. So, for anyone who isn't familiar with this concept, basically managers and direct reports meet on Fridays to give each other feedback, and they give each other feedback on the company, on each other, and on themselves. And so, it's an opportunity to check in regularly, more
Mm,
regularly than the performance review, on how things are going, how you can better support me, what the gaps are. And so, I would say that, on one level, we're doing it quite informally. And I think this goes to your
mhm,
earlier point of things don't have to be overcomplicated. We don't
mhm,
need to have like this really complicated rubric of like, here's how we gauge performance. Like, we're not doing that, right? We are checking in on a regular cadence with regard to what's working, what could be better, and then how do we take action on it. In terms of are we referencing job levels, are we referencing titles? Yes, we're absolutely talking about them, but again, we're not trying to be so prescriptive and contrived that like here is the metric and we're following it. We're
yeah,
talking at the performance review in high level, like here, okay, where do you want to be in 6 months? What would it take to get there? Okay, cool, we've got these three check boxes. Let's keep touching base. And then every Friday they are touching base on progress. Okay, you're moving in the right direction, you're not moving in the right direction, you have stalled out. And so the
mhm,
beauty of that is that by the time you get to the performance review, no surprises. It's literally
mhm.
a summary of the discussions that you have been having every single Friday. So that's really our approach to performance reviews is every 6 months we've got the high level summary, but every week in between we are talking about your growth.
Mm. That's cool. I like that you have the goalposts of maybe the more formal performance review every 6 months, but there's still this continuous feedback loop. Thank you so much for listening to List the Damn Salary Range. If you enjoyed the conversation, head over to www.listthedamnsalaryrange.com to sign up for the newsletter.